This episode of Juice Guru Radio is brought to you by TriBest, making healthy living easy. My first juicer over 26 years ago was a TriBest Green Star. They've always been the best. They always will be the best. The only juicers we use and recommend. Get yours today.
Welcome to Juice Guru Radio. Discover what the magic and power of juicing can do for you. And now, your host, best-selling author of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Juice Fasting, Steve Prusak.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Juice Guru Radio. I'm your host, Steve Prusak. On today's show, we've got Quentin Vennie. He's a wellness expert, motivational speaker, and author of the best-selling memoir, Strong in the Broken Places, a memoir of addiction and redemption through wellness. He's here. He'll be right here right after this. So stay tuned for a special interview with Quentin Vennie.
Here's another Juice Guru approved product.
Hey there, Juice Guru tribe. Here at Juice Guru, we've tried a lot of juicers. Pretty much just about every juicer on the market, in fact. But the one we've chosen as our absolute favorite for the last 3 years in a row has been the TriBest Slow Star. Order your own at the Juice Guru Tribe discount by visiting our website at juiceguru.com. TriBest Slow Star makes healthy living easy. Get one today.
Juice Guru Radio.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back to Juice Guru Radio. I'm your host, Steve Prusak. We've got Quentin Vennie here. Like I said, he's a wellness expert, motivational speaker. His new book, Strong in the Broken Places, a memoir of addiction and redemption through wellness, already a bestseller. His transformation has inspired thousands worldwide at raising global awareness of anxiety, depression, and addiction. And his story is going to inspire you too. Let's welcome to Juice Guru Radio right now, Quentin Vennie.
Thank you. So glad to be here. How are you?
Quentin, thank you. I didn't want to share your story in the bio. I wanted you to take us back to where you were and what you've gone through to get to where you are today.
Well, I was born and raised in Baltimore. My father was a heroin addict, so I was raised by a single mother. He spent the majority of my life, either in the streets or in prison. Grew up, I'd like to say, on both sides of the economic spectrum. I, grew up in a pretty rough environment in West Baltimore, but went to schools in the suburbs of Baltimore County. So, I was able to have the experience of both sides. When I was 14, I was diagnosed with acute anxiety and depression. They wanted to put me on Prozac at the time. My mother told them, that was a no-go. So I spent essentially the next 12 years of my life just figuring it out, being a teen and young adult, just trying to figure my life out. And then when I was 26, I was diagnosed with severe generalized anxiety and panic disorder and mild to severe major depressive disorder. The first course of treatment was medication. At that time, I accepted it, and ended up with a 2-year addiction to prescription medication. Overdosed on a combination of anxiety pills and Vicodin. Survived an accidental overdose. Survived 2 failed suicide attempts, and then found my own level of health, healing, and sustainability through what I consider to be my trinity of wellness, which is yoga, meditation, and juicing. And as a result, I was successfully able to, rid myself of all medication, as well as heal some other things, like acne and, all kinds of things through my diet and through juicing. Just recently wrote my first book detailing, everything that I just explained.
Really amazing. And, when we hear about disorders of the brain, I remember hearing this story once where, a lot of times people try to ignore it, when there's depression or anxiety, because it's not a physical thing we can see. So they don't really like to, but it's just like any other disease, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I think it needs to be treated with a level of priority. I mean, in our culture, in our society, and even in my community, mental health is only something that's just beginning to have a dialogue. It's not something that was ever really talked about or discussed, publicly. You didn't walk down the street and say, "Hey, Steve, I'm going through some depression today. Can we talk about it?" That was very rarely the subject of conversation. It's something that most people don't understand, especially if they've never experienced it. And generally, it's not as easy as just get over it, everything will be okay. I mean, if it was that simple, we wouldn't need these types of discussions.
Well, of course, we're excited to hear about how juicing played a role. So how did you, get introduced to juicing, and what did that start to do for your transformation?
Well, I actually got into juicing right after I watched the documentary, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead with Joe Cross, and then I watched Crazy Sexy Cancer with Chris Carr. And, the two commonalities were juicing and lifestyle adjustment. Here you had, Joe Cross, this Australian guy who was overweight, had autoimmune disease. He went on a 60-day, 90-day juice fast and lost weight, got off the medication, so on and so forth. So, after my second failed suicide attempt, that's when I realized that even left to my own vices, I couldn't kill myself correctly. So I was obviously here for something, and I needed to take the responsibility and finding out what that was. So, the first step for me was research and, looking at the things that I was putting into my body and how that was contributing to my mental health and just my overall well-being. And once I started researching the food industry and the medical industry, and then I came across those two documentaries. And, needless to say, immediately following that, I went to my 24-hour Walmart and I bought my first juicer.
And what did you first notice initially when you first started juicing and getting all those nutrients in your body? What was the initial awakening that you tuned into at that point?
Well, initially, the first few juices that I tried were disgusting. I mean, I didn't really, have the process down. I would juice different things, and I would have 4 or 5 different glasses, and I would pour, small amounts to try to figure it out. I had no idea what I was doing. But once I actually got accustomed to the process, the first thing that I realized was this abundance of energy that I'd never felt. Prior to that, I was a big caffeine guy. I was a latte a day type of dude. I used to, lift weights in the gym. I was training for a men's physique competition at one point. So I was consuming well over 450 milligrams of caffeine every day, in pre-workouts and coffee and everything else. And this was an energy that I felt that I never felt before. It was different than the caffeine high. It was different than anything else I'd experienced. And at the time I was still a heavy smoker too. So, I'm waking up every day and the first thing that I would grab would usually be a pill, my pill bottle or, a cigarette or a combination of the two. And now this was shifting and I felt like I didn't need anything else automatically, to substitute the juicing. It's like the juicing came in and, I just felt, just an incredible sense of well-being, an incredible sense of energy, of just being open-minded to possibility, I think, for the first time in my life.
And then how did it progress from there? So you brought in these other pillars like meditation and yoga. What role did they play and how are they part of your life now?
They're still a huge part of my life. I think, it was a combination of all three that really helped get me to where I am right now. I mean, the juicing was definitely the start. I had to, adjust what I was putting into my body, which helped my body heal physically. The yoga, because I had my first panic attack in the gym, I was no longer physically active. Anything that would spike my heart rate was something I wasn't interested in doing. So the yoga actually helped me get back to being physical without, excessively doing it, to kind of force anxiety or panic or anything like that. And then meditation just helped calm my mind and it put me in a space of just being present. I'm a firm believer that anxiety resides in the future and depression resides in the past. And as long as we can stay present, then we're in a world where neither one of those two things can exist. So that was the process.
And how are you including juicing in the routine now? Are you juicing every day? Do you do juice cleanses? And what is your favorite juice?
I haven't done a juice cleanse up to this point. I wouldn't, not like a 3 or 4 day cleanse. I'll fast for a day. And my favorite green juice recipe is kale, spinach, celery, ginger, cucumber, and apple. And then my secondary juice that I do is oranges, apples, turmeric root, and ginger root.
So working with people, inspiring them now, where do you start? You know, if people are trying to overcome addictions and, you know, get off medications, and what's the starting point for you as far as inspiring people and getting them down the path that that you've awoken to?
For me, I think the starting point is acceptance. I think, for me, the hardest thing to do was to accept that I was an addict. Was to accept that I did have a mental health issue, was to accept that I needed help and I needed to change. Once I acknowledged for myself that, these things were necessary, the next step was just doing it. It's like we always sit back and we wonder how, right? Like I get asked all the time, like, well, how did you do it? I don't know how I did it. I just did it. I feel like the answer to the how is always in the doing. It doesn't matter what the path looks like. It doesn't matter if it looks exactly like mine or exactly like yours or anyone else's. As long as we're putting one foot in front of the other every day and we're moving in the direction that we want our lives to go in, inevitably it will happen. I didn't think that I was going to be a juicer or do yoga or meditate or write a book or, be having this conversation with you. My main goal 5-6 years ago when I started was to heal myself because I realized that I had a problem and I realized that I needed to be here for my children. I needed to be here. I was obviously here for something greater. And once I accepted that responsibility, it was nothing for me to just push forward and just do what was necessary to get to that point.
Are there struggles now on the day-to-day? Like, do you fall into a relapse of depression or anxiety, and where are you with the medications today?
As far as medication is concerned, I don't take any. If I take anything, it may be a Motrin for, a migraine or something like that, which I rarely get. I have tendinitis in my wrist, so the turmeric juices definitely help with that. As far as I forgot the other question. I'm sorry.
I was asking where you are today as far as the relapses into depression or anxiety or any of those things occurring.
I think anxiety and depression are things that can't be eradicated. They're things that will always need to be managed. And which is one of the reasons why I didn't really like the medication, because the medication just put a Band-Aid on the actual root cause of what it was that I was experiencing. So yes, I will still have moments where, I wake up and feel depressed, and some days are better than others. And when I have those moments, I give myself permission to be human. I give myself permission to feel my feelings, which is something I never did before. So there may be days where I shut my phone off and I shut myself off to the world and I lock myself in my room and I allow myself to just go through that process, and then the day after that, I get up and, pardon my language, but I kick myself in the butt and the ass and I keep going. I don't allow myself to wallow in my own sorrow. There's a difference between, pain and suffering. And, suffering is a mindset. Suffering is when you allow that pain or discomfort to permeate every area of your life. And because I know what it's like to sleep in my car because I'm afraid of having a panic attack. I've slept in my car in the parking lot of my emergency room hospital. I know what it's like to be rushed into the hospital and have medicine and needles and all kind of things stuck into your body and you don't know what's going on. I know what that feels like. And I'll never allow myself to go back to that point. So, I allow myself to be a human, to feel my feelings, to experience everything that I'm experiencing in that moment. And then I just kind of move forward. And I also believe that having a good support system is always important. Having positive people around you that can help you identify certain things that you may not, because they have a certain vantage point that you don't, and being willing and open to accepting that assistance.
I mean, it's an important conversation when you look at depression today. Celebrities like Robin Williams or Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, who both took their own lives and got into that dark place. And but not a lot of people are talking about a natural solution to it. Yeah.
And I think that's the most important part. I mean, a lot of us, we seek for happiness and success. And oftentimes we don't know what either of those things look like because we're looking for it from an external source. So that's why you can have a person like Robin Williams, God rest his soul, who had, seemingly had everything anyone would ever want. and was still unhappy. You suffered the same thing with Heath Ledger. You had the same thing with Corey Monteith. You had, Michael Jackson, who was also taking benzodiazepines for anxiety, among a bunch of other things.
And Prince. Prince too.
And Prince, exactly. So it's like we have to start having these, difficult conversations, and we need to look at things. And again, I'm not anti-medication. I'm not telling anyone not to take medicine, but we have to start taking a bit more initiative in the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, to really help our lives, all the way around.
So what led to the epiphany of going down this path of I'm going to write this book? And again, if you're just tuning in, the name of the book is Strong in the Broken Places, a memoir of addiction and redemption through wellness. I know it's up on Amazon. It's up on your website too.
Yes, it's on Amazon. It's on my website. It's at Target, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold in the U.S. and Canada, as well as Australia and the U.K. So yeah, it's pretty much, everywhere. And what led me to wanting to tell my story, generally I'm a very private person. I've always been that way. I've always been, kind of stayed to myself, didn't really like a bunch of attention or anything like that. But I started writing for Mind Body Green a few years ago, and I started telling my story. And it took a lot for me to even start telling the story. But the first thing that I wrote was, how I swapped pain pills for green juice. And I didn't think that anybody would want to hear my story. I'm just a typical guy from Baltimore. I went through some things. Nobody's going to really care. And I was wrong. And I realized that with that article, there were a lot of people that were going through something very similar to what I was going through, or they were in the beginning stages of their journey and wanted to know how I did it, or, what led me down that road. And so I started telling more and more of my story. And I just felt like I reached a point where it was, I had to tell it in its entirety. Giving fragmented pieces of this story was helping, thousands of people. But I felt like it was limited, and I felt like it was necessary for me to tell, my story from beginning, to where I am right now. And the book starts off, I'm 10 years old in my grandmother's house, and that was the day that I found out that my father was addicted to heroin.
Wow. Amazing. And it's such an inspiration. So take us to where you are now as far as projects, goals, and your plans for the future.
Well, right now, my goal is to really continue to push and promote the book to as many people as possible. I think regardless of your background, regardless of your experiences, one thing that we share as humans is a level of relatability. And, we all share some level of struggle, some level of triumph. And, that's my intention, with the book. So, outside of that, I'm doing a lot more speaking engagements at wellness conferences, telling the story, opening the conversation, having the dialogue about anxiety, about mental health, about yoga and meditation. And, when you really sit back and look at it, I never considered myself like the picture perfect, pillar of health and of wellness. And because of that, I feel like I can relate to people in a different way. I don't have a degree in medicine and, all of this other kind of stuff. I just have firsthand experience. And, my goal is to continue to share that experience and to continue to grow that relatability. I want to get into schools. I have an event on Friday where I'm doing in Baltimore at a school in East Baltimore for middle school girls. Where I'm doing a juicing demonstration and teaching them about juicing and, the importance of meditation and how it can, help them in their day-to-day lives. I want to continue to grow and work with kids as well as adults, but, mainly kids, because I feel like if I had these resources when I was coming up, life would be so much, it would be different for me. I wouldn't have had to experience what I did. And because I did, now it's my responsibility to help other people, to make sure that other people don't have to.
You're listening to Quentin Vennie right here on Juice Guru Radio. We're going to open up for some questions. You have to be part of Juice Guru Academy. For that, at juiceguruacademy.com. But before we close out the formal part of the show, Quentin, anything to say for those just, awakening to this idea of maybe I'll start juicing and I'd really like to get off those meds. You did say acceptance, right? That was the first thing, but any other words of advice to continue along the path that you found to really help change your life?
Consistency. It's like I said, when I first started, the first few juices I made were awful. I mean, they were the worst things I've ever had in my life. It was like I would rather take a shot of corn liquor than drink some of these juices that I tried. But I knew that if it worked for them, it would work for me. And I was diligent in that, and I stayed consistent. Consistency breeds habit, and habits change behaviors, right? And behaviors change our lives. So if anything, if you're just starting this journey, don't quit at one or two juices and just say, hey, this is not for me. Try different things. Some people like juices with no fruit. Some people like juices with more fruit. I would rather a person have a juice with 3 apples in it than go and buy a Coke. Just stay consistent, stay diligent, stay purposeful, trust the process. It's all a process. Healing is not a destination. Healing is a journey. And you have to find a way to enjoy that journey, regardless of what your goals are. You're going to hit your goals and you're going to exceed those. And once you hit those goals, you'll have more goals and more goals. It's a constant process. So, trust the process, enjoy the journey, and you'll experience a world that you never knew existed.
Quentin, Vennie, right here on Juice Guru Radio. Thank you again for being here. And we're going to have the links up at our website at juicegururadio.com so you can find his book and his website and more to follow the work of Quentin. Such an inspiration. Thank you, Quentin. I'm Steve Prussack, and we'll see you next time on Juice Guru Radio.
Thank you for listening to Juice Guru Radio. Find out more about us at juiceguru.com. Until next time, get your juice on.